So today we're going to do classic chocolate mousse. Now if you remember, there are two types of mousse. One has gelatin, one does not. I do think that every pastry person needs to know how to make the most classic of chocolate mousses. And if you remember, I talked about before, a lot of pastry chefs, they prefer not to use gelatin because it gives you a smoother mouthfeel. We use gelatin when we want to unmold the dessert or when it needs to sit out on a buffet. So I'm going to show you another beautiful mousse that does not have gelatin in it. So we're going to do what's called cappuccino chocolate mousse. We have a few ingredients. The first thing we have is just some dark chocolate. This is 64%. I have some unsweetened chocolate. This is just a little bit less expensive and just brings down my food cost. So first thing I have to do is I have to melt these two. Now at school you could put this in the microwave and melt it, but remember chocolate melts from the inside out, so you can scorch chocolate very easily in the microwave. So if you do this, just about 20 seconds, pull it out of the microwave, stir it, and continue that process till the chocolate is all melted. We could put it just in one of those chocolate warmers that we have at school. Just come back, put it on melt, and stir it about every 5-6 minutes because it will eventually scorch in there. Or we could put it over a double boiler. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to plop it here. Remember, you can see my water right now is a little bit too hot for a double boiler. I have to close my sprinkle drawer. People laugh at me. Yes, I have a sprinkle cabinet. You guys said you wanted to see Chef's Normal Life. See all my sprinkles? That is my sprinkle cabinet. Crazy. So we only want about 1 inch of water, and the water should be hot, not simmering. Because once I put this bowl on here, what's going to happen? The water's going to evaporate. The steam has to go somewhere. I don't want the steam to come up and over and into the chocolate. Chocolate is the only natural food on the earth that does not contain water. So if water gets into the chocolate puts up a little barrier, a seal coating, and the chocolate can start to seize. And once you have that, there's really no way to fix the chocolate and have it be exactly the same. So water should be hot, not boiling, so steam is minimal. So you can see it's already starting to melt, so I'm just going to put that aside and let that melt. Now we're going to come back over because we're going to prepare the base. So the base is going to be an egg yolk. But because I don't want to run the risk of salmonella, we have to really temper the eggs and bring them out of the risk of salmonella. We're going to do that by heating a liquid sugar. We're going to use honey. If you're worried that you don't like the flavor of honey, you could use a light corn syrup. And there's two methods to heat this. We can microwave this about 20 seconds. It's going to come to the boiling point in the microwave. What you want to be careful of is when you take this out of the microwave, this can bubble up and over, and a honey burn is just as bad as a sugar burn. You could put this just on a saucepan and then heat it till it comes to the boil. But we have pretty big saucepans, we don't have a lot. This is just about 2 ounces of honey, so you would probably lose a lot of it clinging to the saucepan. So we're going to microwave this. So I'm just going to open this up. And I'm going to hit it for about 20 seconds. Now in the meantime, I'm going to just start to mix up my egg yolk. Again, if I was doing a big batch, I would be doing this on the machine. But, it's 3 egg yolks, so that's 2.25 ounces. We know from macarons the other day that this is not a lot, and the machine will have a hard time picking that up. So we're going to do this by hand. So I'm just going to check my honey. It's not quite hot. You can see it has gone much thinner, but I need it to be a little bit hotter. So I'm going to give it another 15 seconds. And then the last ingredient for my base that I have is a little Kahlua. But what I want to do is take that hot honey, put it into my yolk, and then that will start to make the risk of salmonella much lower. Okay, this should be good. Okay, you can see the bubbles in that. The honey's turned a little bit of a color, and can you smell that, LJ? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can really smell. Now I'm going to have Lance do double duty here. He's going to pour this honey for me while I start to whip it. because we want to do a slow, steady stream. Yes, genetically he is my son. Look, our hands are almost exactly the same. It's that Irish Norwegian in us, right, Lance?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So remember, proper way to whip. You don't want to have your elbow above your heart, so you just keep the elbow pointed down. When your arm gets tired, you just reverse your motion. So we're going to whip this just until it becomes pale color, and it will slightly thicken. We're not going to go all the way to ribbon stage. And Lance, will you walk over and will you stir that chocolate quick? You can take the camera with you. How's it looking? Almost done?
Yeah, it's almost there.
Okay. So you can see I've almost doubled in my volume. My color's lighter. But you can see I'm not at ribbon stage because it's not even really dripping off the whip yet. So I'm going to give it just about 20 more seconds. And then Lance, I'm going to have you funnel in that Kahlua for me. So since we're doing cappuccino, we are going to put in a coffee liqueur. But you could very easily do hazelnut. You could do Frangelico, which is the hazelnut liqueur. You could do just a plain rum if you wanted to. Okay, Lance, slowly drizzle. Remember, just like making a hollandaise, I don't want to add it too quickly because I don't want to break my emulsion. If you don't want alcohol at all, you could do straight coffee. When I do coffee, I would actually just reduce it a little bit, make it more of a syrup. But we all know that coffee and chocolate go beautifully together. Coffee actually brings out a more intense flavor of the chocolate. How's our chocolate doing, Lance? Is it ready?
I think it's almost ready.
Okay, let's check it. We are almost there. Just gonna give it a quick stir. Bowl's hot. So I just want to make sure all of my chocolate pieces are melted. And I'm going to cool this down just till it's about 100 degrees. Lance, what do you think would happen if I took this hot chocolate into those eggs?
The eggs would cook.
The eggs would cook. Now, we pastry people know the term is coagulate, right? Lance is a science major, so he uses the term cook. And I'm going to hear about that later. Right, Lance?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay. So just to speed up this cooling, I'm just going to stir it. Now, because my water wasn't that hot, this isn't really too bad. It's just above body temperature. So guess what? 10 more seconds, I'm going to add this. Now, there's two schools of thought. Whichever way, the eggs can go into the chocolate, or the chocolate could go into the eggs. Since my whip is already in my egg yolks, I'm going to put the chocolate into the yolks. So you'll see I touched my wrist. It was just above body temperature. So I'm going to just go ahead and add this. Put this down. So remember, what I'm doing right now is just making the base. We talked about in PowerPoint, one of the bases was just chocolate. Remember, one is fruit puree. We could do pastry cream. We could do creme anglaise. But again, chocolate is one of the most basic and most popular of the mousses. That's why I wanted to make sure that before you move into another pastry class, you've all made classic chocolate mousse. Thank you, sous chef. Okay, so this is combined. You can see how that thickened nicely. Now, what we want is the perfect base temperature of 75 to 95 degrees. So we would put a thermometer in here. I'm just going to touch this, and that feels almost at room temperature. Lance, your hands are clean. Go ahead and try that. How's it feel?
Feels about room temperature.
Yep, not too hot, right? So this is good. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to go to the fridge and get my cream. So my cream, I started to whip. And again, I did this by hand too. It must be a workout day, right? So you can see I want soft peaks. This is still a little bit too liquidy. And you know, the longer cream sits in the cooler, it does have the ability to separate out. So I'm just gonna now finish this until I get to soft peak. Remember, soft peak just looks like the Dairy Queen ice cream cone. This is 12 ounces. So this is enough for about 6 to 8 servings, depending how we're gonna use it. If I was just putting it in a cup, you know, the average mousse serving is about 4 ounces. So I would get about 6 to 8. We're gonna do little smaller portions so we would get more. And we're gonna save some of this mousse for when we do our petit four tartlets. Those are the little tartlets. They're gonna be about 1 to 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna save some of this mousse. Now you can look at this. Look, that looks real nice. It's holding the peak. So this is ready to go. Remember, we're going to fold in a third at a time. We're going to use a whip. So I'm going to take a third of my cream. Remember, the first third is just to lighten the base. So this third, I can be a little bit on the firm side with it. If my base went too cold, remember, I could just put it right back on that water bath till, again, it went back to the range of 75 to 95. If I ran out of time, it could go in the cooler, and then the next day I could pull it out and again put it on the hot water bath and just bring it up to temp. Remember, especially with this, like when we made that chocolate buttercream, if this base does get too cold, I could have some chocolate chips. And I want a nice, smooth, silky chocolate mousse. Looks pretty good, right, Lance?
Yeah, it does.
Excuse my mess right here. Can you guys see that? Okay, good. So I still have a few white streaks. My last addition is gonna go in. Okay. Here I'm gonna fold. Now, when we talked about bases that don't have gelatin, we did say that this base should set up for about an hour before we use it. And we're actually gonna build almost a trifle. So we're gonna put in some cake in here. We're gonna put in a little caramel sauce. So I'm gonna let this thicken because as I build it, I don't want my trifle to start to fall and have the caramel seep in. So I am gonna just put this in the cooler. You'll notice I did my swipe test. I went from top to bottom. Make sure I didn't have any white streaks. This looks good. I'm just going to clean around the edge one time up here. Put everything back down into the well. And then I'm going to cover this and I'm going to chill it for about 1 hour while I get the rest of the components ready. Okay, so let's review how we made this mousse just one more time before we break and let this go to the fridge. So after mise en place, I put on my 64% chocolate and my unsweetened chocolate, put it on a hot water bath. Remember, water was just hot, it wasn't boiling. I walked away from it and I went ahead with my egg yolks. It was 2.25 ounces, and I heated up my honey. Honey should be almost to the boiling point. You saw how thin it got and the color started to change. I slowly funneled that in and whipped it. The eggs became pasteurized so that then we don't run the risk of salmonella. I whipped that till it was cool, and then my able-bodied assistant gave me the Kahlua. I stirred that in. At that point, the chocolate was ready. I tested the temperature. Remember, I don't want it any hotter than about 100, 110 degrees because I don't want to coagulate my eggs. This went in. I brought my base down to 75 to 95. I whipped my cream till it was soft peaks, and then I checked my temp of my base, and if I was good, I folded in my cream a third at a time, making sure I have no white streaks at the end. And look, this is thickening already. The chocolate has a chance to cool off and it's starting to just solidify. It's mellowing in with that heavy cream. So I'm going to start to prep my other ingredients. I have to cut some chocolate cake. I have to melt some more chocolate because we're going to do a chocolate garnish. And I just have to check my caramel sauce. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Lance, can you zoom in? Mousse is out of the fridge. Look how nice and thick that is now. This was just an hour of the chocolate cooling down and melting in with the cream. So now look, if I were to pipe this on a cake, it would definitely hold the rosette. It would even hold the basket weave, believe it or not. So I'm going to fill my pastry bag, and we're going to start to build our mousses. Now the nice thing about this mousse, it could go in between cake layers. I could put it in a dome mold that you see on Instagram all the time, and I could pop it out. That's the kind of thing that we do in Patisserie 1. We start to build entremets and individual French pastries. Here at Baking 2, you know, we're just learning how to walk, and then we get into the really upscale stuff next semester. So my mousse is quite thick. I have my caramel. This is salted caramel because it will counteract the richness of the cream with the salt. So come on in, let's zoom in. I've got my cut up to about a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna hold it right against the cake. This is just our leftover devil's food cake that we made in class, and I just went ahead and stamped it out with a circle cutter. It fits the bottom perfectly. Now, I don't want to go around the mold like this. Lance, if you can come in from the side, because if you can see that, I don't really want to see that pattern. You see the lines? It would look like an air pocket. So I'm actually going to take my mousse, I'm going to put it right in the center, and when I squeeze it just like this, and notice I never even lifted the bag. Now I get a completely full cup. And what I want to do now is inject some of my caramel, and the salt is already in here. And again, this is just going to make for a nice inclusion that no one's going to know it's there until you start to scoop into this. So pastry bag in, and do you see that volume? I just squeezed about a tablespoon or 1/2 ounce of caramel right on there. And then I'm just gonna let this set aside and firm up while I fill the rest of my cups. So the mousse is all piped. We're gonna get about 6 to 8 of them. And now I wanna create a chocolate garnish that's gonna fit right on the top like a lid. So I have my melting chocolate here. And so I have 2 guitar sheets. So what we're gonna do to make sure we have even thickness, this is a little bit different than what we did when we did the chocolate flourless, where we just took our offset and we spread it. Again, this class is about showing you different ways to do things. So I have my chocolate down. I'm going to put a second guitar sheet on. I'm just going to spread it north and south. And now I'm going to go my other direction. And then this will help me cut my chocolate without getting any kind of breakage. So I just press this down. I'm going to take my cutter, and notice what I'm going to do. I'm just going to press down, and you can see how it's making the cut mark. And then I'm going to let this chocolate set completely, and then I'm just going to end up peeling my top layer away, and I'll have perfect lids for the top of my chocolate mousse. So I'm going to let this set, and then we'll be back in maybe 20 minutes. If you'll zoom in, you can see that my chocolate is set. If you have a section that didn't cut all the way through, you can now come back and just recut the lines. We'll get our offset under there, and look how easy these come out now. So again, this is a different technique, but equally efficient than what we did with the flourless cake, because that's where we just put it on the guitar sheet, and then we use the offset to smooth it. So this, we just use the rolling pin again, and we got very even thickness. So it's actually, you know, a little bit more efficient than the one that we did for the flourless. But I always want to show you different techniques so that, you know, you always have options. The world loves options.
Yes.
This is what our finished mousse is going to look like. So we have the hat or the lid for the mousse. This is the disc that we just made. We have some caramel corn. That's going to counteract nicely and tie in with the caramel that we put in. And for texture, we have some of these little chocolate crunchies. And then just to counterbalance, we have the plaquette. So in order to build this, the first thing I want to do is garnish my lid. So I'm actually going to put on the caramel corn first. So I'm just going to put a little bit of chocolate there. That's going to anchor our caramel corn. The caramel corn will actually be made, I'm going to make it in school on Monday, because we learn caramel corn in Patisserie 1, and the bakery always smells great on that day.
Will you bring some home for us?
Yes, maybe I'll even make some cheese corn for you too.
Oh, yes.
We can do our own ECC Chicago mix. How does that sound?
Sounds yummy to me.
You'll make sure to be home that day.
I sure will.
So then our plaquette goes. Again, I want to just hide that little piece of chocolate to attach it. And then I'm going to put these crunchies. I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of chocolate And then I'm gonna get my sprinkles. And shake it right on. I'm gonna do Taylor Swift and shake it off, right? Is that what the line is?
Mine is shake it off. You are
Shake
correct.
it off. Look at me go. Again, there is my street cred for this day. You see, and then I shook it off. All you T-Swizzle fans, right?
Don't say T-Swizzle.
Kelsey, I'm showing. Well, how does she go?
She does not say T-Swizzle.
She used to say T-Swizzle.
She never said T-Swizzle.
Someone said T-Swizzle.
It was Dad.
Oh, that was Dad. We should edit that out because that's not good. If you ever meet my husband, someone's going to say T-Swizzle. So this will then just lift right on. And then look at that. That's beautiful. Should I do another one?
Yeah, do another one.
Okay. So again, I have my lid. I'm going to put my chocolate down. Tallest item should always be in the back. Chocolate's setting up on me. There we go. A couple pieces of caramel corn. Again, you always try to do odd numbers. And then I'm just going to get some nice height. There we go. I'm surprised I haven't seen you dig into this, Kelsey.
Well, I am on camera.
Okay. Well, just, you're not, but you're holding
I'm
the
holding
camera.
the camera, so.
There we go. I am not going to T-Swizzle this because that's not what she's called, apparently.
It is not.
Put my crunchies down. Shake it off. I'm going to put down, again, just a dollop of the mousse so it stays elevated. You could do whipped cream also, but I have the mousse there, and most people like mousse better than whipped cream. And then I'm just going to rest this on. And there we go, guys. The shelf life of this would be about 3 days under refrigeration. The caramel corn will hold. Guess what? I could actually freeze this too, completely built, if I had to. So again, we had cake. We had our chocolate mousse. We have the salted caramel inlay. And then to tie in with what we have a little caramel corn. We have some crunch. And just to build the height and even it out, we did a plaquette. So again, this was chocolate mousse without gelatin as a base. You saw how thin it was to begin with, and then once it refrigerated, it was very thick and it was pipeable. So this is what we're gonna do the second day of mousses. Okay, guys, I'll be able to answer any questions once we get into the lab. Okay, great. Thanks so much. And again, there will be D2L questions online. Taylor Swift will not be one of the questions.
Thank goodness.
Okay, maybe my sprinkle cabinet will be.
Okay.
Okay, bye.